my name is Hido and welcome to the Pantheon, where in Innistrad we're here, we're, being terrorised by all sorts of things, including a creepy merchant. Old Rutstein. I've just been playing Banjo-Kazooie and I've just got up to Rust Bucket Bay, so this card, it's very fitting. 3 mana for a 1/4 human peasant. When it enters the battlefield or at the beginning of your upkeep, mill a card. If a land card is milled this way, create a treasure token. If a creature card is milled this way, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. If a non-creature, non-land card is milled this way, create a blood token. So this card, it does all sorts of things. You can go in many different directions with it. The main thing I'm going to be concentrating on is the lands because, well, your deck's going to be about 40% lands, so you're going to get a lot of treasure tokens. But this card, really quite cool, nice value engine, and it's an enter the battlefield and just an overtime effect. So you're going to constantly get this sort of thing, which is really, really nice. I like it. Golgari, my favourite combination. Very, very cool to see. So why don't you subscribe to my channel? Sorry for that little dance, bit intimidating. But please do, I'm going to make videos like this for every single legendary creature ever printed, so come and join me on the journey. And without further ado, let's have a look at my top 5 for RUSTein. In at number 5, we've got Chatterfang Squirrel General, and this is all about the fact we're making tokens. 3 mana for a squirrel warrior with Forest Walk. If one or more tokens will be created under your control, those tokens plus that many 1/1 green squirrel tokens are created instead. Then you can pay a black and sacrifice X squirrels. Target creature gets +X, -X until end of turn. So the awesome thing about this is everything our commander does, whether it's milling a land or, a non-creature spell, it's creating a token. So we're always going to get some lovely, lovely squirrel-based value from old Chatterfang. Really, really cool card to include. And while we're talking about tokens, Parallel Lives is brilliant. 4 mana for an enchantment. If an effect would put 1 or more tokens onto the battlefield under your control, it puts twice as many of those tokens instead. So if we exile... why am I saying exile so much? If we mill a land, we're going to get 2 treasures. Ooh, mega ramp. But this is just wonderful, and it's every token that we have. Similarly, the second harvest, 4 mana for an instant. For each token you control, create a token that's a copy of that permanent. So all of these, we can just keep all of them on the field and then double them at instant speed. Really, really nice. Great with all the creature tokens that we're going to make. Just double your army in one big fell swoop. Lots of squirrels all over the place. Then this isn't particularly about tokens, but we're going to be making a lot of tokens. So Aetherworks Marvel is brilliant. And 2 of those token types can sacrifice themselves, the blood and the treasures. 4 mana legendary artifact. Whenever a permanent you control is put into a graveyard, you get an energy counter. Tap, pay 6 energy, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may cast a card from among them without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So if we're generating a ton of treasures, things like that, well, we can just sacrifice them all. We get a energy counter for each of them. I'd put this in the deck even without many energy cards in it because the deck itself can just generate that energy using this. So it's a great little engine. It's a marvel, you might say. Moving on. Let's have a look at number 4. Number 4, I've got Hag-Hedge Mage. I love the name. I love the artwork. I've always wanted to put this card in a deck. I just think it's wonderful. 3 mana, 2/2. Hag Shaman. When it comes into play, if you control 2 or more swamps, you may have target player discard a card. Pretty easy. Then, when it comes into play, if you control 2 or more forests, you may put target card from your graveyard on top of your library. So this sets up the mill with our commander. And this is what this section's all about. Setting up that mill so that we're milling something specific. Or, well, bringing things back from the graveyard, because this, not only we're going to be, setting up, getting a treasure or whatever we want, but we can also make our opponents discard cards. It's just so much value for 3 mana. And to enter the battlefield, which might come up later. Noxious Revival is a brilliant card. A green or 2 life for an instant. Put target card from a graveyard on top of its owner's library. I'm probably going to choose myself, but you can mess with your opponents, put a land on top, when they're really digging for some big spell. But this is phenomenal. Gets us back whatever we want to mill, and we're going to ensure we're going to get a great draw. Or, after we've milled the card in our upkeep, we can use Noxious Revival at instant speed to put something we want to draw on top. Then Cavalier of Thorns, a 5-mana ramp spell. Ooh, not that great. It is good, though. It's an elemental knight 5/6 with reach. When it's the battlefield, reveal the top 5 cards of your library. Put a land card from among them onto the battlefield and the rest into your graveyard. So fills the graveyard for things that we want to put on back on top. And then when it dies, you may exile it. If you do, put another target card from your graveyard on top of your library. So that sets up the mill, sets up a potential draw. This card does everything we want to do. It fills the graveyard and then stocks up the top of our graveyard. Then a nice cheap spell, 2 mana for a 3/1 Elf Shaman. When it's the battlefield, put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. You may put a land card from your graveyard on top of your library. So if we've not got our commander out, turn 2 maybe, we can ensure we're going to draw a land so we can play our commander, or we can set up our commander to mill a land so that we're going to get a nice little treasure. Does everything we want to do. Now, here's an interesting one. God Eternal Bontu. 5 mana, 5/6 with Menace. When it's the battlefield, sacrifice any number of other permanents and draw that many cards. So all of our tokens, we can just gobble them all up, all our lands. If someone Mindslavers you, you're not going to have a board state after this guy's in your hand. And when it dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, you may put it into its owner's library, 3rd from the top. So this sort of sets up, your mill. Eventually, or you could end up drawing it. But this card, I just love the fact that it's planning ahead. And to be honest, what will happen is you'll put this 3rd from the top, you do a couple of other things, and then completely forget it's there. And then it's like, oh, I've milled this, I get a 1/1 insect. Wow. Similarly, we've got God Eternal Ronus. 5 mana, exactly the same clause where you put it back on top, or if it exiles or dies. 5/5 Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield, double the power of each other creature you control until end of turn. Those creatures gain vigilance until end of turn. Absolutely phenomenal. We're putting this in the deck because our commander is a 1/4 and we need to attack for 2 every now and again. Wonderful, wonderful card. Then we've got the Mending of Dominaria. 5 mana for a Saga. 1 and 2, mill 2 cards, and you may return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Then 3, return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield and shuffle it into the graveyard, your graveyard into your library. So this resets all the things you might have milled and just adds a little bit of mill to give us a couple of options. And we're going to be returning creature cards, which we can then deploy. It just does everything we want to do. Which brings me on to number 3. And at number 3, we've got Grimflayer, and these cards are all about manipulating the top of our deck because we want to ensure that not only we're going to mill something that's relevant, but we're going to draw something that's good. 2 mana for a human warrior with Trample. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You will put any number of them into your graveyard and the rest back on top of your library in any order. Delirium, it gets +2/+2 as long as there are 4 more card types among cards in your graveyard. So that sort of Gravestorm, I guess, you're looking at the top 3, putting any number back, is amazing. Really sets up your draws and your mills, which are amazing. It does everything the card wants to do. It just sets up so well. Delirium, not hard to get to. You're running artifacts, enchantments, all sorts of gubbins. This card just does it all. Then we got the cream of the crop. 2 mana for an enchantment. Whenever a creature comes into play under your control, you may look at the top X cards of your library, where X is that creature's power. If you do, put one of those cards on top of your library and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. In any order. It's not random. Oh, you can do whatever you want. I love it. This card will just generate so much value and set you up so well in all of your turns. It's just an amazing, amazing card. Really, really good. It even works. Well, I say it works. With the 1/1 insects that you get to, the insect comes in, you get to look and put the same card back on. But at least you're setting up and planning ahead. Then Sensei's Divining Top, sadly expensive, but just proxy it. 1 mana for an artifact, pay 1, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put them back in any order. So there we go, we can manipulate our deck so we're milling whatever we want. Then tap, draw a card, put it on top of its owner's library. So if you really, really, really need a blood token, you can put this on top and then mill it. Is that something you want to be doing? Well, it's up to you. Then Mirri's Guile. 1 green for an enchantment. During your upkeep, you may look at the top 3 cards of your library, put them back in any order. Excellent top deck manipulation. Really great card. And it just sits there. You don't have to invest any mana in it, which in some ways makes this better than Sensei's Divining Top. And you can stack it so this happens before you Old Rutstein mill, which is nice. Then Scroll Rack, 2 mana for an artifact. Play 1, tap, exile any number of cards from your hand face down. Put that many cards from the top of your library into your hand. Look at the exiled cards and then put them on top of your library in any order. So you just switch your hand with the top of your deck, basically, or as many as you want. Really great card, manipulates everything wonderfully. Then we got Brutalizer Exarch. 6 mana, 3/3 Cleric. When into the battlefield, choose 1. Search your library for a creature card, reveal it, and shuffle your library and put that card on top of it. So it's a bit counterintuitive. We're paying 6 mana to put something on top to mill it. But what you've got to remember, what you can do in green and black is reanimate those creatures as well. So we put something on top, mill it, then we get to reanimate it. Yeah. Anyway, put the top, or you can put target non-creature permanent on the bottom of its owner's library. So that's an excellent bit of removal for, lands that are giving you a bit of jip or anything like that. Then here's an interesting one. It's Demir Machinations. 3 mana for a sorcery. Look at the top 3 cards of target player's library. Remove any number of those cards from the game and put the rest back in any order. Quite cool. Bit of manipulation. 3 mana is expensive for that. But the main reason I'd put it in is the transmute cost. 3 mana, discard this card. It's just like Cycle. Search your library for a card with the same converted mana cost to this card. Reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. Only do this as a sorcery. So this can go and get you any 3-drop in the deck. If I was playing this, I'd really stack the deck with a load of different 3-drops that cover a lot of bases. 3-drop ramp spell, 3-drop removal spell, 3-drop board wipe, toxic deluge, things like that. Just cover all your bases so this can always tutor for something you might need. And that brings me on to number 2. And in at number 2, we've got Dark Confidant. So if we're manipulating the top of our deck, these sort of cards are phenomenal. Yes, it's amazing in Modern and things like that. But in Commander, where we're playing big 9 mana spells, 10 mana spells, we don't want to be dealing 10 damage to ourselves. But with all the top deck manipulation we've got, Dark Confidant can ensure that we're not going to hurt ourselves. 2 mana for a 2/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library. Put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to the converted mana cost. So you can just stack your deck with a couple of cheap things. And then the cool thing is, with all the top deck manipulation you've got, you can stack this either before or after Old Rutstein. So it will become complicated. So try and play quickly for your opponent's benefit. But this is a great card. And it just works so well. It's card advantage. It's 2 mana, so it's nice and cheap. Wonderful, wonderful. Dark Tutelage is this on an enchantment. 3 mana. Beginning of your upkeep, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to the converted mana cost. Really, really nice. Absolutely wonderful. Just such a great card. Yes, it can't attack, but genuinely in Commander that's probably a bit better. So this won't get removed, although it might end up killing you. Then we've got Keen Duelist. This is a sort of flip on what I was talking about not wanting to reveal something big. Keen Duelist, 2 mana for a human wizard. At the beginning of your upkeep, you and target opponent each reveal the top card of your libraries. You each lose life equal to the mana value of the card revealed by the other player. You each put the cards revealed into your hand. So we want to stack a deck with something absolutely colossal. Emrakul the Promised End, something like that. Then what we can do, we reveal that. Our opponents take 13. They may reveal something that costs 4 or something. But we've got a great chance of revealing something massive because of all the top deck manipulation. Then Deceiver of Forms. I love this little guy. It's like an insect sort of thing. 7 mana for an 8/8 Eldrazi. And you have to use a colorless mana to cast it. At the beginning of combat on your turn, reveal the top card of your library. If a creature card is revealed this way, you may have creatures you control other than Deceiver of Forms become copies of that card until the end of turn. You may put those cards on the bottom of your library. So this can just make everything into a big creature. You know, we stack the deck with something, I don't know, Crater Hoof or something like that. Not very good because you don't get the end to the battlefield. But everything will become a 5/5 with haste. So we can just swing in for tons of damage. Then there's Bioplasm. 5 mana for a 4/4 ooze. Whenever it attacks, remove the top card of your library from the game. If it's a creature card, it gets plus X plus Y. What? Until end of turn, where X is a removed creature's power and Y is its toughness. Oh, that's quite cool, isn't it? Really, really nice. We can set up. The thing about putting things on top of your library is sometimes you don't want some of it. You know, maybe you don't want that massive creature right now. Well, with this, we get to get it out of the way by exiling it, and this becomes a massive attacker. It's just a cool card. Then we've got Sapling of Kolfanor. 5 mana, 2/5, indestructible Treefolk Shaman. Whenever it attacks, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, you gain life equal to its power. That card's toughness, sorry. And lose life equal to its power, then put it into your hand. So a Dark Confidant-esque card for creatures. And, you know, it's an indestructible blocker and attacker, so always a good time. Then, the big one, Bolas's Citadel. 6 mana for a legendary artifact. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play the top card of your library. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its converted mana cost rather than pay its mana cost. Then you can tap and sacrifice 10 non-land permanents. Each opponent loses 10 life. With all the tokens we're making, that last thing, that tap, we can do this as soon as this comes out. It's really quite easy to do. And then, you know, we can just churn through the entire deck and cast whatever we want. Nice. And that brings me on to number 1. And at number 1, we've got Conjurer's Closet, because our commander, it's enter the battlefield and it's over time, you know, every upkeep. So let's use that into the battlefield. And I talked a bit about the Hag Mage and stuff like that. You can fill your deck with all sorts of great enter the battlefield effects. Conjurer's Closet, 5 mana for an artifact. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. So we get that extra mill, that extra token, whatever you want. It's just a great card all around. Then here's a couple of sort of interesting sort of exile sort of effects. Voyager's Staff, 1 mana for an artifact, pay 2 and sacrifice it. Exile target creature, return the exiled card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Okay, it's a one-shot use, but, you know, if you've got a massive enter the battlefield effect, it's more than worth 3 mana to reuse it. Then we've got Kaya's Ghost Form, 1 black for an aura. Enchant creature or planeswalker you control. When enchanted permanent dies or is put into exile, return the card to the battlefield under your control. So we get an extra trigger off our RUSTein, or if you've got a Crater Hoof or something like that, you can sacrifice it, bring Crater Hoof back, bing bang bosh, loads of damage. Finally, there's Rescued from the Underworld. 5 mana for an instant. There's an additional cost to cast it. Sacrifice a creature. Choose a target creature card in your graveyard. Return that card and the sacrifice card to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next upkeep. So, if we sacrifice old Rutstein, he's going to end up coming back with the creature we get back. So this is a great removal spell that works with the enter the battlefield theme that we'd want to use with our commander. And those are my top 5 cards. Old Rutstein. He's rusty. Not much else to say. He smells a bit musty. Sorry about that. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this, please do like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.